Something extraordinarily bad happened on CNN yesterday. No, not CNN. I'm not talking about them. They're horrific. Don't get me wrong. You know, I've been around the law my entire life, my entire adult life. Went to law school at a very young age. Graduated at a very young age. Became a member of the bar at a very young age. And even today, in some respects, I've practiced law since I was 22, 23 years old. And there are certain rules that you must comply with. Every year now we have what's called continuing legal education, CLE. It really started with John Dean as a result of his conduct during the Nixon administration. The various state bars decided in their own ways that all of us should be punished and we should all take these continuing legal education courses. Each state kind of varies in what they require. Virginia requires a fairly stringent amount of coursework and so forth. We also have rules of professional conduct in each state. Very elaborate, heavily debated rules of professional conduct put out by the bar, approved by the Supreme Court of each state. And you wouldn't know it. There's certain rules of professional conduct for judges, too. Just because a judge is a lifetime appointee, they're not kings. They're not queens. They have ethical obligations to the law, ethical obligations to doing justice. And over the course of the history of our country, they have failed, many of them. My first book, Men in Black, lays out the case of one Supreme Court justice after another. Some of them were bigots and racists. Some of them had dementia and they stayed on way too long. Some of them were chasing their female law clerks around a table. Some of them were on the take. Most of them weren't any of these things, but the sum of them is too many. If I had to guess today, there's been about 150 Supreme Court justices, give or take, not many more. We have about 1,000 federal district court judges. These are the most coveted yet easiest jobs, lifetime jobs anyone can ever hold. You can literally be an idiot and be a federal district judge if you get through the confirmation process. You have law clerks who help you. It's really not a full-time job unless you're really, really focused on it. And it can go to your head. You sit there in the courtroom and Your Honor this and Your Honor that, and the lawyer's a little nervous, certainly the witnesses. Very, very nervous because you have an awful lot of power with your lifetime appointment. And there's not a lot asked of these judges. But one of the things that's asked of the judges is stay the hell out of politics. Stay the hell out of politics. You have a lifetime appointment. What would you say about a federal judge in Washington, D.C., who goes on CNN and trashes Donald Trump? What would you say about that? I've never seen anything like this before. I've never heard of anything like this before. A federal judge who goes on CNN and trashes Donald Trump. And, of course, in the middle of an election, excuse me, and while there's these legal cases going on. What an arrogant SOB. Because that federal judge knows there's no chance in hell, even if he's impeached, that the Senate would convict him. And so, rather than comply with the rules of professional conduct for lawyers, the rules for judicial conduct, obviously for judges, and over 200 years of experience, this judge takes it upon himself to go on CNN and trash Donald Trump. His name is Reggie Walton. I'm well familiar with him. His name is Reggie Walton. He worked his way onto the federal bench with a variety of choices, Democrat and Republican. He's not considered the brightest judge on the bench. I can tell you that right now. I've dealt with him myself. And what you're about to hear is the most brazen, grotesque violation of judicial ethics in this way and in this fashion ever. Ever. Now, did he ask to go on CNN or did CNN ask him? Does it matter? But apparently he asked. Cut 17, go.
I think to a lot of people, the dangers of attacking a judge and his family and their family is clear. I wonder how you would respond to something like this.
So let's stop for a minute. She's talking about Donald Trump, who is exposing the elected Democrat judge and his radical left daughter in the Alvin Bragg case. And Caitlin Collins is a complete fraud. She used to be in conservative media, but now she sees this is where the action is. And I want to remind you, folks, that Chuck Schumer, in front of the Supreme Court of the United States, pointed to the court and threatened two Supreme Court justices, pointed to the court and threatened Kavanaugh and Gorsuch by name. And no damn federal judge went on CNN to complain about that. Not one. Not one. And Judge Walton, so-called judge, I can tell you this. If I ever had a case in Washington, D.C., I would demand that it never be presented in front of Walton because he's exposed himself. He's exposed himself. What does he say? Go ahead.
Well, it's very disconcerting to have someone making comments about a judge, and it's particularly problematic when those comments are in the form of a threat.
They were not in the form of a threat, Judge. The threat came from Schumer against two Supreme Court justices. Why didn't you drag your ass on the CNN then? You understand, Judge? You're now open to public criticism. You got it, right? Now it's clear. You're a partisan political hack in a black robe. That's what you are, Walton. You want to make these comments? You resign. You get off the damn bench. Then you go on CNN. That's what you do. You have violated, I don't know how many provisions of the rules of professional conduct for lawyers and even more for judges. There was no threat made against the judge or his daughter. If there had been a threat made against the judge or his daughter, the judge would know how to deal with it. You, a federal judge, going on CNN in front of a grifter, phony host, spewing what you're spewing is an outrage. Go ahead.
Family. I mean, we do these jobs because we're committed to the rule of law and we believe in the rule of law. And the rule of law can only function effectively when we have judges who are prepared to carry out their duties without the threat of potential.
There was no threat. There was no threat of potential physical harm. I challenge you, Judge, right now. Show us the threat. Give us the language. Because you're the only one who saw it. And you sat silently in your courtroom, in your cloistered environment, when Chuck Schumer did, in fact, Mr. Producer, during the break, grab that Schumer cut, will you? Did, in fact, attack 2 Supreme Court justices. You said nothing, even though it's about a mile away from your courthouse. Down Pennsylvania Avenue. You said nothing. And Caitlin Collins said nothing. This is unbelievable. Literally, folks, this is unseemly. Cut 18, go.
And we had a judge out in Chicago who someone came after her. And fortunately, she was not there, but her family members were. And several of them lost their
now
lives.
Donald Trump, see the projection? See what happens here? They were going after the judge, wasn't there. Family members were killed, as I recall, because this individual didn't like the way this judge ruled. What does that have to do with Trump? Absolutely nothing. Zero. Go ahead.
That we live with, but you try not to let it impact on your day-to-day life.
I don't expect you to get political here, obviously.
Look how devious and diabolical this Collins is. But Walton must have known it. Go ahead.
Trump considers when he posts something like this?
I can't get into someone's mind.
When he posts something like this. Post something like this. Ms. Collins, how many death threats has Donald Trump received? Do you know? Do you care? Have you asked? How many death threats did Supreme Court justices get when the Dobbs decision was leaked and after it was issued? Sam Alito implied that they got a lot, especially him, because he wrote it. Did you care? You didn't give a damn. You trash Clarence Thomas day in and day out. The Democrat Party does. How many death threats has he received? Huh? How many? You people sit there with your snobbery. The media called Trump Hitler. Gee, I wonder if that incites any violence. And we know that what you did to Kavanaugh almost cost him his life. Some punk traveled from California, armed, ready to take him out. Kavanaugh. But no, don't criticize the judge in New York, you see. I don't know, Walton. Did you speak out with the treatment of Kavanaugh? Who was a federal appellate judge in your same courthouse, by the way? Did you speak out for him? Did you feel moved to go in CNN and say, this treatment's outrageous, what you're doing to the judiciary? It can cause threats. How many threats about his life did Kavanaugh receive? Caitlin Collins? Sick. This is so sick. And this judge. This is a judge. Go ahead.
The impact that they're doing, but I would think that any reasonable thinking person would appreciate that when they say things, it can sometimes resonate with others. And I think that's particularly true when you have somebody who has status in our society and they make certain...
Say his name. Say his name. So when the Democrats trash Supreme Court justices, when the Democrats trash the judge in Florida, what about that, Walton? Is that okay? Go ahead.
Cause people to act on those statements, even if they don't necessarily intend for someone to do so. So I think it's very important that people in position...
All right, so here's the deal. I challenge Caitlin Collins right now to have Schumer on her show, play what he said, and ask him if he was responsible for potential violence against the justices. I wanted to bring Durbin, and better yet, Harris, who was promoted to vice president, what she said and what they said about Kavanaugh. I'd love to know about it. Meanwhile, the militia for the Democrat Party was marching up and down the homes and the residences, I should say, of Supreme Court justices, and the Attorney General of the United States didn't do a damn thing about it.